Hey Gear Seekers, I'm Nick. We're checking out a new board from ASRock today. It's the X570S Phantom Gaming Riptide. It's a X570 refresh, however, they haven't really done this Riptide series before. I think it's kind of focused at the lower end and more budget solutions for X570 boards. And as I've mentioned in other X570S videos that we've done, it's basically the same thing as regular X570, however, it's got a silent chipset because, you know, it's not actively cooled anymore. So let's take a look at this new board. Yep. As usual with our motherboard content on the channel, this video is not a review, it's just an overview so we can take a look at what's in the box and all of the things on this brand new board from ASRock. And as you're about to find out, there's not a lot going on here, but that may actually not end up being a bad thing with this board. We'll talk about all that towards the end of the video. Let's jump in and take a bit of a look.
Alright ladies and gentlemen, it's right here. It's the ASRock X570S Phantom Gaming Riptide. Let's get the motherboard out of the way so we can take a little bit of a closer look at everything that comes with the board, and then we'll take a look at the board itself. Alright, let's get it out of the way. Come on mate. First up, we've got the I/O shield. Now, because this board is a budget focused board, yeah, it doesn't have an integrated I/O shield. More on that later. I do have updated pricing despite what I'm going to be saying in this video. Okay, we've also got some SATA cables for the 2.5-inch SSDs or spinning rush drives of your choice. There's also a single M.2 screw and an M.2 standoff for the M.2 slot on this board that does not have that included already. This is the quick installation guide. Now, at a second glance, you might not think this is actually quick because of the size of it. It's like a Harry Potter novel. However, it's in a couple different languages to make your life easier. There's also this round circular plastic device that I'm not quite sure what this is. Can somebody in the comments please let me know what this thing is? I have no idea what to do with it or where it goes. Very, very strange bit of technology. It's almost alien-like. Alright, and last but not least is a little addition ASRock's been doing for a while now. It is an included GPU support bracket. Now this screws between the motherboard, or rather on top of the motherboard, to the case itself for GPU support. This is pretty handy. I think this is a nice little addition with this lower end board. And last but not least is the motherboard itself. So let's unsheath it, as we already have, and take a bit of a closer look at the X570S Phantom Gaming Riptide. Right, first off, we've got the front panel audio connector. There's a 4-pin 12V RGB header. There's also a 3-pin 5V addressable RGB header. There's a PWM fan connector. 2 USB 2.0 ports for things like AAOs and RGB controllers and all that older school kind of jazz. There's also another PWM fan connector. There's the front panel connector for all your lights and all your switches and all those doodads to let you know your system's up and running, and a front panel USB 3.0 header. Next up, there's a clear CMOS button, as well as 6 SATA or SATA ports for your 2.5-inch SSDs or your spinning rush drives. Above that, there's another PWM fan connector, a USB 3.0 header, there's a front panel USB Type-C header, and the 24-pin power connector to send all of your juice to your X570S Phantom Gaming Riptide. On the top right hand side of the board, we've got a 4-pin 12V RGB header, as well as a 3-pin 5V addressable RGB header. There's also 4 LEDs for a postcode diagnostic layout, and 2 more PWM fan connectors for your CPU fan or an AIO pump. On the top left of the board, there is an 8-pin EPS power connector and a supplemental 4-pin EPS power connector as well. And there's another PWM fan connector too. There's 3x16 sized PCIe Gen 4 slots. The top slot is a full x 16 slot, the middle slot is a x 4 slot, and the bottom one is also a x 4 slot. There's also a bunch of x 1 slots as well, which have open ends, and this is one of my favorite things with these boards. They're really good for diagnostic purposes. X570S boards aren't actually a new chipset. They're just X570 chipsets that have been designed to be passively cooled and not actively cooled. There's no difference with the chipset whatsoever. Speaking of such things, the VRM layout on this board, it features a 10-phase digital VRM setup with Dr. Moss 50 amp power stages. You can see that with the VRM heatsink, they made this as kind of a little bit of an IO cover as well. Now, just underneath that heatsink, there's another PWM fan connector that's hiding in the gap between the M.2 heatsink and the VRM heatsink. This board features a standard AM4 socket with standard cooler mounting, which supports Ryzen 2000, 3000, 4000 APUs and Ryzen 5000 right out of the box. And that's really the point of X570S, to support all of that. If we flip the board over and take a look at the back side of the board, there's nothing really special going on here. So yeah, I thought I would just add this because it's nice to see what the back of a new motherboard looks like as well. The X570S Phantom Gaming Riptide supports 128 gigs of DDR4 memory at 5000 MHz overclocked. Let's pull that top M.2 heatsink off just to take a little bit of a look at the M.2 slots on this board. It features two M.2 slots. They're both Gen 4 M.2 slots, and on a budget focused board like this, yeah, there's nothing really too obscene about that. Speaking of, there's also another M.2 Wi-Fi slot on the board, so you can add your own Wi-Fi card, and there are provisions for that we're about to look at as well. For the rear I/O, there is a BIOS flashback button. There's those Wi-Fi antenna provisions, as I mentioned. There's an HDMI port, there's some USB 2.0 ports and a PS2 port, USB 3.2 ports, USB Type-C, 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, it's killer Ethernet as well as 7.1 digital surround sound with optical and SPDIF output.
Alright ladies and gents, I hope you enjoyed this first look and overview of this brand new X570S Phantom Gaming Riptide board from ASRock. Now there's a few things that I noticed on this board. One thing that you guys will probably notice as well is there's no VRM cooling on the top of the board. It seems as though there's some voltage regulation going on up there, but you know, at the end of the day, it's up to ASRock to decide what they want to do and if the cooling they've got is sufficient for the board. So yeah, this is something that we haven't seen in a few years, having no VRM cooling at the top. But, you know, at the same time, it doesn't need it because there's no VRMs at the top. So I haven't really dived in and done really much with this board. I pulled it out of the box and showed you guys everything that there was from the jump. Now, I know a lot of people have certain ideas about ASRock boards and whatnot, but they do some things that I think are quite handy. So stuff like this open-ended by one slot, they actually do this quite a bit on their boards, and that's handy for me if I'm diagnosing certain cards and that kind of stuff. I like open-ended slots. I reckon motherboard manufacturers should do that more actually. Just give us open-ended by one slots. It's not too hard, but feature-wise, this to me appears to be a bit more of a B550 board. The only difference being that everything on this board is PCIe Gen 4, whereas the B550 variant would be a little bit different there, but we don't have that B550 board. We only have this one here. There's also other little things that you can tell that this is kind of going to be more budget focused. There's no pre-installed IO shield. It's got the cutouts for adding antennas for the Wi-Fi and a Wi-Fi M.2 slot as well. So it seems like they're trying to put X570 more into the budget area for this kind of stuff. And as I've mentioned before, this refresh is pretty late on in the game. To be honest, we don't even know when Zen 4 is coming, so any leaks or fake news or whatever, like, it just doesn't mean anything until we have the boards physically in our hands. But yeah, we'll obviously be doing a build with this thing and checking it out and seeing how it is, but yeah, I don't know. I think this one's going to be quite a cheap board. And I did reach out to ASRock for comment and ask them about pricing and availability, but I haven't heard anything from them regarding that, which is fine. They said initially when they announced these boards at Computex that it would be available Q3. It's Q3 now, so let's see if you can get your hands on them. And if you guys find any pricing in the time that it takes me to add pricing in the description or a pinned comment or whatnot, let me know. I'm curious to see what you found. I could not find anything at the time of filming this video, but
actually, that's not the entire truth. ASRock did reach out after I filmed this part of the video, and they let me know that the board's MSRP is $185 US. So my assumption of this being a relatively cheap X570 board was correct. And now, back to the rest of the video.
It does look to me that it's a little bit on the budget end of the scale compared to the X570S boards that we saw from Gigabyte, like the Master, which was a pretty interesting looking board. We've built with it and it's pretty badass. And yeah, this thing is, you know, it is what it is. I have no opinion on it because I just haven't used it yet. I think really the main selling point for X570S boards at this point is Ryzen 5000 support out of the box, and it supports all the way from Ryzen 2000 up to 5000 as well. So if you're wanting to like upgrade to X570 and not B550, this one might actually be something to look at based on the price, which we don't know, but from what I can tell, just looking at it and seeing boards like this that have that more industrial type of style, it's gonna be cheap. Anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed this first look and overview. Yeah, I'll put some more info in the description if there's anything to add after I film this video. But anyways, guys, hope you liked it. I don't know what to say at the end of these videos. I'm your boy Nick with Gear Seekers. You peak, we seek, and let's take a cinematic look at the board. Thanks for watching.